The acrid smell of smoke tore through the quiet Sunday afternoon in Willowbend Reserve. It started as a distant shout, a warning lost in the lazy hum of a suburban weekend. I had been on top of a ladder, hammering in the last plank of a treehouse for my daughter, Emma, when the panicked cries for help sliced through the stillness. Without thinking, I dropped the hammer, the metallic clang swallowed by the rising noise of car alarms and screams. For over 20 years, running toward danger had been second nature to me. As a police commander, I'd learned to read a situation before it fully unfolded. But nothing in my career prepared me for the sight that awaited me when I rounded the corner onto Juniper Lane. The first thing I saw was the thick, black smoke ballooning from a silver sedan parked near the community center. Flames licked up the sides, angry and fast. But what made my heart stop cold was the familiar silhouette of my own minivan parked just 2 rows away, and inside it, my 7-year-old daughter, Emma, pounding weakly against the window with the limited strength she had. Emma had been born with a rare muscular disorder. She used a wheelchair to get around, and her body, while fragile, housed a spirit fiercer than any storm. We had moved to Willowbend just 3 weeks earlier, hoping the peaceful environment would help her heal after the loss of her mother. I thought we'd found sanctuary. I was wrong. I tore through the crowd that had gathered, my heart thundering against my ribs. I spotted Mrs. Rivera, our elderly neighbor, desperately trying to reach the van, but a tall woman in an ivory pantsuit blocked her path with mechanical indifference. "Move," Mrs. Rivera pleaded, her voice hoarse with terror. "There's a child trapped in there." The woman, standing ramrod straight, looked unmoved. "No one is to approach this vehicle until security verifies its authorization," she said. Her voice was sharp, rehearsed, the voice of someone who loved rules more than people. I knew instantly who she was, Margaret Dalton, the president of the Willowbend HOA. Her reputation preceded her, a dictator draped in pearls, more feared than respected. I had dismissed the neighbors' warnings about her, chalking them up to gossip. Now I understood the depth of their fear. "That's my daughter," I roared, pushing forward. Margaret turned her icy gaze toward me, unmoved. "Stop right there," she ordered, holding up a hand. "This vehicle is unauthorized for today's community event. You are in violation of HOA regulations." Behind her, the silver sedan roared louder as flames burst from its hood. The wind, as if conspiring with the fire, carried the heat directly toward my van. Inside, Emma's terrified face was pressed against the window, her tiny hands fumbling helplessly at the door lock. "Step aside," I demanded. But Margaret planted her heels. "I have already called security and a tow truck," she announced. "No one is above the rules. Not even you." Tears streamed down Mrs. Rivera's face. "She's disabled. Please, she can't get out on her own." Margaret folded her arms. "Then she shouldn't have been left unattended. This is a secured event for residents only." A fresh blast of heat made the crowd stumble backward. Someone shouted, "That car's gonna blow." Still, Margaret didn't budge. Inside the van, I saw Emma straining, trying to reach the adaptive controls on the far side, controls she couldn't get to without help. "My daughter is in danger. Give me the keys," I barked. Margaret lifted her chin in defiance. In her manicured hand were my van's keys, snatched from Mrs. Rivera's purse when she'd gone inside the community center for just a moment. "Your so-called daughter could be anyone," Margaret sneered. "For all I know, you're staging an incident to bypass community rules." The fire cracked and popped. A tire exploded on the silver sedan, sending shrapnel across the asphalt. We had maybe 2 minutes before a full explosion. "I'm Commander Daniel Hartman, Willowbend Division 8, I said, pulling my badge from my pocket. "You are obstructing an emergency rescue. Hand over the keys now or face arrest." For the first time, doubt flickered across Margaret's face. But instead of surrendering, she gripped the keys tighter, and with a cruel smile, pressed the lock button. I heard the ominous click as the van's locks engaged again, trapping Emma inside. "I'm securing this vehicle until proper authorities arrive," she said, her voice quivering slightly now. Before I could react, a blur of motion flew past me. It was Tyler Brooks, a high school football player built like a linebacker. With the instinct of someone who understood what was at stake, he tackled Margaret to the ground and wrestled the keys from her hand. "Sorry, ma'am," he said bluntly, tossing the keys to me. "That kid's more important than your rules." I caught the keys midair, sprinted to the van, and unlocked it with shaking fingers. The door handle was searing hot, but I barely noticed as I yanked it open and pulled Emma free. She clung to me, sobbing into my chest as I carried her away from the fire. Behind us, Margaret screamed in outrage, pinned to the ground by Tyler and another neighbor. "You can't touch me. I am the president of this community, she shrieked. I didn't even glance back. My entire focus was on getting Emma to safety. I set her down across the street, away from the worst of the smoke. Are you hurt? I asked, running my hands carefully over her arms and legs. Emma shook her head, her blonde pigtails swinging. She wouldn't let Mrs. Rivera come back, she whimpered. She said people like me shouldn't be allowed at events for normal kids. Anger boiled in my veins, but before I could respond, a thunderous boom split the air as the burning car's gas tank exploded. A fireball shot into the sky, showering the lot with burning debris. My van, parked too close, caught almost immediately. Within minutes, Emma's custom wheelchair, communication device, and the adaptive systems that gave her freedom were engulfed in flames. The first fire trucks arrived moments too late to save anything. As I stood there watching everything we had burned, Officer Marissa Lane, a former trainee of mine, pulled up. Her face twisted in shock as she recognized me. Commander Hartman? She gasped. Sir, what? I live here now, I said tightly. And I need you to arrest that woman for child endangerment, theft, and obstruction of emergency services. Margaret's face drained of color as Marissa approached. Her protests died in her throat when the cuffs clicked around her wrists. The aftermath was both harrowing and heartening. Insurance covered some of our losses, but Emma's new equipment would take months to arrive. Yet something remarkable happened in Willow Bend Reserve. Neighbors I barely knew rallied around us. Tyler's parents lent us their accessible van. A retired mechanic fashioned a temporary wheelchair from scrap parts. And the HOA, spurred by outrage, voted unanimously to remove Margaret from her position. Robert Dalton, Margaret's estranged husband, visited us a week later, eyes rimmed with regret. I'm so sorry for what my wife did, he said, handing me a check for $75,000. I filed for divorce. It's time I stop enabling her. But Margaret's downfall didn't end there. Surveillance footage from the community center revealed her not only stealing the keys, but smiling as Emma struggled inside the van. Investigators found text messages on her phone boasting about cleaning out undesirables. The district attorney charged her with attempted voluntary manslaughter, and the media had a field day. Margaret's real estate license was revoked. She was fired. Her face became synonymous with cruelty and corruption. At her sentencing, the judge spoke with cutting clarity. Mrs. Dalton, your disdain for the vulnerable is shocking. You endangered a child's life for the sake of imagined authority. You are hereby sentenced to 15 years in state prison, with no parole eligibility for 10 years. Margaret wept, but no one listened. Robert donated their mansion to the city to be transformed into a recreation center for children with disabilities. The community named it Emma's Haven, and the opening ceremony was a bittersweet celebration. Standing under a bright spring sky, Emma, in her new wheelchair, cut the ribbon while dozens of children cheered. The plaque at the entrance told her story, how a little girl's courage exposed a tyrant and rebuilt a community. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked, Daddy, will the mean lady ever get out of timeout? Not for a very long time, sweetheart, I said. Emma nodded, satisfied. Good. Maybe when she gets out, she'll be nicer. As I turned off the light and watched her drift to sleep, I realized that out of fire and hatred, we had built something stronger, a community grounded not in rules, but in kindness. And in Emma's shining smile, I found hope that no amount of cruelty could ever extinguish.